Sure. Here's a great, deeply detailed, and simple summary of the passage you gave, like you're learning from the world's best teacher, with full background, clarity, and beginner-level explanations. Deep, detailed, simple summary. This passage is about a group of ancient people called the Sulikas, and it explores who they were, where they lived, and how they were connected to important kings in early Indian history. Let's break it down like a story with full detail. 1. Who were the Sulikas? The Sulikas are a tribe or group mentioned in an ancient inscription found at a place called Haraha. Historians are not sure exactly who the Sulikas were. There are different opinions, but some experts believe the Sulikas are the same as the Saulikas, who are mentioned in two very old books. Bharat Samhita, a famous Sanskrit book about geography, weather, astrology, and people, written by Varahamihira in the 6th century CE. Markandeya Purana, a religious and mythological Sanskrit text. These books describe the Saulikas as living in southeastern India, near the ancient regions of Kalinga, modern Odisha and northern Andhra Pradesh, Vidarbha, modern eastern Maharashtra, Siddhi, near modern eastern Madhya Pradesh. So, these historians think the Sulikas were probably a tribe living in southeastern India. 2. Archaeological support. Who are the Sulki chiefs? A historian named Goyal found inscriptions in the modern-day state of Odisha at places called Denkanal and Talcher. These inscriptions mention rulers known as the Sulki chiefs. The name Sulki is very similar to Sulika, and because they lived in the same southeastern region, many scholars believe they are the same people. This gives strong evidence that the Sulikas mentioned in the Haraha inscription lived in that region and may have had some local power. 3. Possible contact with kings. Isanavarman and Yasodarman. Isanavarman was a prince from the later Gupta dynasty. He may have met or fought the Sulikas during a military campaign. He went on this campaign with a much more powerful king named Yasodarman, who ruled from central India and belonged to the Aulikara dynasty. This campaign went as far as the Mahendra mountain, which is in the southeastern region, Odisha Andhra. That means Isanavarman may have encountered the Sulikas when passing through their land. 4. Varavarman's status and power. Isanavarman's father was Varavarman. He was ruling when this military campaign happened. Son went on this big military expedition doesn't mean Varavarman was the emperor of North India. That honor goes to Yasodarman, the big king who led the campaign. However, Varavarman was probably the most powerful of the smaller kings under Yasodarman. Another strong king, Jivatopta from the later Gupta dynasty, was probably the second most powerful after Varavarman. What does this? This passage paints a picture of regional power politics in ancient India. There were local tribes and rulers, like the Sulika Sulki chiefs in the southeast. There were big kings, like Yasodarman, who led campaigns far from their home regions. Smaller kings, like Varavarman, were very powerful in their own right, but still under the authority of the big emperor. His son, Isanavarman, showed his involvement in empire affairs by joining the emperor's war, possibly fighting groups like the Sulikas along the way. This also helps historians connect names and inscriptions, place ancient groups on the map, and understand the power structure of early medieval India. Extra historical context to help you even more. Yasodarman was famous for defeating the Huns, a foreign group who invaded North India, and he became a powerful king for a short time. Later Guptas were successors of the Great Gupta Empire, ruling parts of eastern and northern India. Vassal kings like Varavarman had independent power locally, but they still followed the bigger emperor. Final short summary if you want to remember it quickly. The Sulikas were likely a tribe from southeastern India, probably the same as the Saulikas mentioned in old Sanskrit texts. Inscriptions from Odisha show that rulers called Sulki chiefs lived there, supporting this idea. A prince named Isanavarman may have met them during a campaign with Emperor Yasodarman. This doesn't mean his father Varavarman was emperor, but he was probably the most powerful king under Yasodarman, with another king, Jivatagupta I, being the second most powerful. Would you like a timeline, family tree, or map to visualize all of this better? I can make one for you. Here is a great, deeply detailed, but very simple summary of the entire passage, like teaching a total beat. I'll explain every key point clearly. Topic: how the Malkaris became independent and the Aulakara Empire collapsed. 1. The big background. In ancient India around 6th century CE, the Aulakaras were a powerful ruling family, like emperors, based in central India, especially in the Malwa region. Their main city was Dara, modern Dar in Madhya Pradesh. Under their rule were smaller kings or royal families called feudatories. These feudatories obeyed the Aulakaras, but also ruled their own smaller areas. Important feudatories were the Makkaris, located in northern India, around present-day Uttar, the royal family in eastern and northern India. Over time, these feudatories became powerful, and this was a problem for the Aulakaras. 2. Why it was a problem. When smaller rulers grow power, don't like being ruled anymore, independent emperors themselves. So the Aulakaras felt threatened. They feared that the Malkaris might them and start ruling on their own. The Malkaris make the first move. A historian named D.C. Shukla says the Malkaris were the first to break free from Aulakara control. They threw off the yoke. This means they refused to be ruled anymore. They started to act like independent kings and tried to become emperors. 4. An important event, the fire from Dara. This rebellion is mentioned in an ancient inscription found in Jaunpur, in Uttar Pradesh. The inscription talks about Isvaravarman, a Malkari king. It says that he extinguished a spark of fire that had come from the city of Dara. This is symbolic language. It probably means the Aulakaras, angry at the Malkaris, sent an army from Dara to crush their rebellion. Isvaravarman fought back and defeated the Aulakara army. The spark of fire was the danger or war that the Aulakaras started. Isvaravarman put it out, meaning he won the battle. This showed that the Malkaris were strong enough to defend themselves and didn't need to obey the Aulakaras anymore. 5. Why this event was important. It proved that the Malkaris were powerful and ready to act independently. It also showed that the Aulakaras were getting weaker. After this, the Malkaris rose to power, and the Aulakara Empire began to collapse. Even though some scholars read the Jaunpur inscription differently, a respected historian named J.F. Fleet said this interpretation makes the most sense in the context of what was happening politically at the time, and most historians agree with him. Final summary in 5 points. 1. Aulakaras were powerful emperors with feudatory families like the Malkaris under them. 2. The Malkaris became strong and wanted to be independent. 3. The Aulakaras tried to stop them by sending an army from their capital, Dara. 4. Isvaravarman, the Malkari king, defeated the attack, proving their strength. 5. This event helped the Malkaris rise to imperial power and led to the decline of the Aulakaras. Let me know if you want a timeline of events, a map showing the places, a character guide, who was who. I can explain each one in the easiest way possible. Here is a great, deep, and very detailed summary of the passage you shared of the war, written in the simplest way, as if explaining to a complete beginner. Summary: the Malkari-later Gupta War and the struggle for imperial power. Background: 2 rising powers. After the fall of the Aulakara Empire, 2 powerful dynasties emerged as leading forces in northern India. 1. The Malkaris, whose ruler, Isvaravarman, had defeated the Aulakaras. 2. The later Guptas, who claimed the legacy of the earlier Gupta Empire. Both these dynasties had gained great strength and wealth. Now, both wanted to become the next big empire, like how the old Guptas or Aulakaras once were. This created a direct rivalry between them. New rulers take over. In both dynasties, new kings came to power. Kumaragupta became king of the later Guptas after his father, Jivitagupta. Isanavarman became king of the Malkaris after his father, Isvaravarman. Isanavarman's mother, Bhattarika Devi Upagupta, may have been a Gupta princess, meaning Isanavarman possibly connections to the Guptas too, but it's an ambition. Isanavarman's imperial ambitions. Because the Makkaris had already achieved military success under Isvaravarman, Isanavarman now declared himself an emperor by taking the title Maharaja the Raja, meaning King of Kings. This title was not just symbolic. It meant he was claiming supreme authority over other rulers. The later Guptas were angered by this because they also wanted to be recognized as the supreme power in India. This led to a major war between the two. The war and the Afsad inscription. The war between Kumaragupta, later Guptas, and Isanavarman, Makkaris, is recorded in an ancient stone inscription called the Afsad inscription, made by a later Gupta king named Adityasena. This inscription uses poetic language and comparisons from Hindu mythology. For example, it compares Kumaragupta to Mount Mandara, a mythological mountain used to churn the ocean during the Samudra Manthan, churning of the ocean. It compares Isanavarman's army to the milk ocean that was churned, vast, dangerous, and powerful. It says Isanavarman was like the moon among kings, meaning noble, shining, and majestic. The Makkari army is described as the cause of attaining Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth and victory. This poetic description shows the strength and fame of Isanavarman and his army. Who won the war? Historians disagree about who won this war. Some scholars, Majumdar, Tripathi, Sinha, believe Kumaragupta was the winner. Other scholars, Mukherjee Ray, argue that Isanavarman won. The author of the original text supports the second view for this reason. Even though the inscription was written by a later Gupta king, it praises Isanavarman and his army more than Kumaragupta. It focuses more on the military power of the Makkaris than on Kumaragupta's bravery. That shows even the Guptas respected the strength of their enemies, and perhaps Isanavarman truly won. Key point summary, bullet form. After the fall of the Olakaras, two powers competed, Makkaris and later Guptas. Isanavarman, son of Isvaravarman, became ambitious and claimed the imperial title Maharaja the Raja. This angered the later Guptas, and war broke out between Kumaragupta and Isanavarman. The war is described in the Afsad inscription in poetic terms. Isanavarman's army is praised greatly, and he is called the moon among kings. Historians disagree on the result, but many believe Isanavarman won based on the inscription's tone. Historical significance. This war shows how regional powers tried to become empires, the old Gupta Empire. The Makkaris were bold enough to challenge Gupta even though they may once served under them. The Makkaris rising to power is part of a larger pattern of Indian history, where feudatory states slowly become imperial powers. Would you like a simple map showing the two kingdoms? A timeline of rule? A story-style version for better memory? Just ask, and I'll make it even more perfect for you. Here is a very detailed and very simple summary of the passage you shared, broken down step by step so a beginner can easily understand it. Topic: the later Gupta-Makkari War and its consequences. 1. Background of the war. Two major royal families, the later Guptas and the Makkaris, were fighting for power and control in northern India. Kumaragupta was the ruler of the later Guptas. Isanavarman was war, main battle. There was a big war between Kumaragupta and Isanavarman. In that war, the Makkaris won, and the later Guptas were defeated. Damodara Gupta, who was Kumaragupta's son, fought in the same war and died during the battle. This means both father and son suffered. The father lost the war, and the son lost his life. 3. Confusion in historical records. Some old historians thought there were two separate wars. One between Kumaragupta and Isanavarman. 2, another between Damodara Gupta, Kumaragupta's son, and Sarvavarman, Isanavarman's son. But modern historian Goyal says this is not correct. Goyal believes there was only one war, not two. In that one war, the Makkaris won. Damodara Gupta died. The name of the Makkari king in the inscription is not repeated because Isanavarman was already mentioned earlier. 4. The aftermath. Kumaragupta's suicide. After this terrible loss, Kumaragupta was defeated. His son was killed. He was so heartbroken and dishonored that he went to Prayaga, modern-day Allahabad, and ended his life, committed suicide. 5. A similar historical example. This was not the only time something like this happened. Another king, Baladitya, also known as Narasimhagupta Baladitya I, also committed suicide when his own son died young. So such events were known in Indian history. Some kings chose to give up their lives when they faced deep defeat. Final summary in one paragraph. There was a major war between Makkaris and the later Isanavarman led the Makkaris, and Kumaragupta led the later Guptas. In this war, the Makkaris defeated the Guptas, and Kumaragupta's son, Damodaragupta, was killed. Some old historians thought there was another war afterward, but historian Goyal says that this was just one big war, and Damodaragupta died in it. The inscriptions do not name the Makkari king again, because his name, Isanavarman, had already been mentioned. After suffering this defeat and the loss of his son, Kumaragupta was so grief-stricken that he committed suicide in the holy city of Prayaga. This was not the only case. Another king, Baladitya, had also ended his life after losing his son. Would you like a visual timeline or a map to go with this explanation? I can make it even easier that way. Here is a great, deeply detailed, and very simple summary of the passage you shared, written like I'm explaining it to someone with no background knowledge. Topic: what happened after King Isanavarman of the Makkari dynasty died? 1. Who ruled after Isanavarman? His main successor, the next king, was his son named Sarvavarman. Sarvavarman's mother was Queen Lakshmivati, also respectfully called Bhattarika Mahadevi Lakshmivati. 2. Was there another son of Isanavarman? Yes, Isana's son named Suryavarman. This is mentioned in an inscription found at a place called Haraha. 3. What did Suryavarman do? While his father, Isanavarman, was still alive, Suryavarman repaired an old broken temple dedicated to a form of Lord Shiva called Andakari Shiva. He restored the temple, making it beautiful again, like a decoration or ornament of the earth. 4. What happened to Suryavarman? After that, nothing else is heard about him in any records. This silence suggests two possibilities. His father deceased, or he may have fought for the throne but lost. In that case, he may have been removed from power, ousted, or even killed. 5. Was Suryavarman mentioned elsewhere? A historian named H.C. Raychaudhuri thought that this Suryavarman might be the same person as another king named Suryavarman, mentioned in a different stone inscription, called the Surpur inscription. That other Suryavarman is praised for being from a powerful ruling family, the Varmans, and for having control over Magadha, a rich region in ancient Bihar. 6. Was Raychaudhuri's idea correct? Another historian, R.S. Tripathi, disagreed. He said the Surpur inscription looks like it's from the 8th or 9th century CE, based on the writing style. But the Makkari Suryavarman lived in the 6th century CE, so they probably were not the same person, even though they had the same name. In short, after King Isanavarman, his son Sarvavarman became king. Son Suryavarman, temple, but vanished from history. Maybe he died early or lost a power struggle. Some thought he later ruled Magadha, but that seems unlikely because the timing doesn't match. That Suryavarman lived 2 centuries later. Would you like a family chart or timeline to help remember who was who? Here is a greatly detailed summary of the passage you provided, written in very simple language, so even a total beginner can understand everything clearly. Who was Avantivarman? Varman was a king from the Makkari dynasty, a royal family that ruled parts of North India in the 6th and 7th centuries CE. He was the son of King Sarvavarman, and when Sarvavarman either died or stepped down, Avantivarman became the next king, his successor. What did Avantivarman do? One of the most important things he did was to confirm a land grant that is already given before. This is known from the Dio Baranark inscription, a stone record that tells us this fact. This shows Avantivarman respected the decisions of his father. In those days, land grants were often given to temples, priests, or scholars. By confirming the grant, Avantivarman proved himself to be a responsible and noble king who kept his promises. What do ancient writers say about Avantivarman? A very famous writer named Banabhata praises Avantivarman greatly. He says, Avantivarman was the pride of his royal family, meaning he was a very good and admirable king. His family, the Makharis, was said to be at the head of all royal houses, meaning they were among the most powerful and respected royal families at the time. People respected Avantivarman so much that they worshipped him like the footprints of Lord Shiva. This means he was deeply honored and loved, almost like a divine figure. Was Avantivarman interested in literature and learning? Yes. There is evidence that Avantivarman was a supporter of writers and scholars. Some people believe he supported Visakadatta, the author of the famous Sanskrit play Mudra Rakshasa. This play is about politics and spies in ancient India. This idea is based on old versions of the text that mention the name Avantivarman instead of Chandragupta, which suggests that Avantivarman may have helped or inspired Visakadatta. Also, in the introduction of the novel Kadambari, written by Bana, his teacher, Guru, named Batsu, is said to be honored by the Makkari kings. This shows that Avantivarman respected wise men and learned people, and helped promote literature and education. Who came after Avantivarman? According to Bana's book, Harsha Charita, Avantivarman's eldest king, his name was Varman. He also had a younger son, whose name started with Su, but his full name is not given here. We will learn about him later. What happened with Grahavarman? Grahavarman, the son of Avantivarman, was described as brilliant and powerful, like a godly planet coming to Earth. He married named Rajyashri, royal family of Thanissar, an important kingdom in northern India. This marriage was very important because it was a political alliance, meaning two powerful kingdoms were now united through marriage. Rajyashri was the sister of King Harsha, one of the most famous rulers in Indian history. So, this marriage connected the Malkaris and the Harsha dynasty, forming a powerful bond between the two royal families. Was Avantivarman alive when this marriage happened? Probably not. The writer Bana says that Grahavarman himself arranged his marriage. Avantivarman is mentioned at all in the wedding story. This suggests that Avantivarman had likely passed away by that time. In short, final summary. Avantivarman was a wise and respected king of the Malkari dynasty. He became king after his father Sarvavarman. He respected his father's decisions and continued his grants. Ancient writers, especially Bana, praised him a lot. He was likely a supporter of literature, helping great writers like Visakadatta and Batsu. His son Grahavarman became king after him. Grahavarman married Rajyashri, sister of King Harsha, making a powerful alliance between two royal families. Avantivarman had probably died before this royal wedding. Would you like a visual family tree or a timeline to help make this even easier? Sure. Here's a summary of the passage, explained simply and clearly, covering all important points with extra detailed summary of successors of Damodaragupta and the rise of Sasanka. This passage talks about the kings who ruled after Damodaragupta, focusing on his son Mahasenagupta and an important king named Sashanka who rose in Bengal. 1. Later Guptas and their lineage. The later Guptas were a royal family who ruled parts of northern India after the first great Gupta Empire. Damodaragupta was one of the later Gupta kings. His son, Mahasenagupta, became king after him. Mahasenagupta, also Mahasta, Adityavardhan, Shiabudi family. This marriage connected two important royal families, and their grandson was the famous emperor Harsha, who ruled northern India later. 2. Mahasenagupta's war. Mahasenagupta fought a war against Sastitavarman, a ruler in eastern India. The war took place near the river Lauhitya, the ancient name for the Brahmaputra River. This war was important enough to be proudly recorded in an ancient stone inscription called the Apsad inscription by a later king named Adityasena. Historians have debated how important this war was. Mahasenagupta and Sashanka relationship. A historian named Goyal suggests that Mahasenagupta may have gone to Kamarupa, an ancient kingdom in northeast India, as a feudatory, meaning a local ruler who served under a more powerful king. That more powerful king was Sashanka, an emerging ruler from Bengal. Importance of Bengal in the 6th century. During the 6th century, Bengal became a very important region politically and economically. Bengal's wealth and strategic location made it a key prize for many rulers. Many kings fought over Bengal, including the Alikara kings, later Guptas and Makaris. Some Bengal kings, like Gopachandra, Dharmaditya, and Samachara Deva, are known from inscriptions and coins, showing their prominence. 5. Jayanaga's rise. After these kings, a ruler named Jayanaga emerged. He seems to have built his kingdom in Bengal by his own efforts, rather than inheriting it. This shows that power in Bengal was not fixed but could be gained through skill and strength. Number 6. Rise of Sashanka. Sashanka, a king from Gauda, part of Bengal, became very powerful. He held Samanta, which means great feudatory lord or regional king. We know this from his seal, a kind of official stamp found at Rohtaskar. Sashanka became like an emperor, expanding his power greatly. Like Sher Shah Suri, a famous 16th century ruler, Sashanka conquered many important cities. Varanasi, a religious and cultural center. Kusinagara, an ancient city. Gaya, another religious city. Pataliputra, the ancient capital city of India. Why is this important? This passage shows how power shifted in northern and eastern India after the Gupta Empire. It highlights the rise of new rulers like Sashanka, who challenged older dynasties. Bengal's importance grew because it was wealthy and strategically located, attracting many powerful kings. The connections between royal families, like the later Guptas and Pushyabhuti, show how politics and marriages were linked. Sashanka's conquests show the rise of new powers who could control major cities once ruled by older empires. Summary in simple terms. Damodaragupta's son Mahasenagupta ruled after him. Mahasenagupta's sister married into a royal family, leading to the famous King Harsha. Mahasenagupta fought a big war near the Brahmaputra River. Bengal was a rich and important land many kings wanted to control. Jayanaga made his own kingdom in Bengal. Sashanka became a very powerful king in Bengal, conquering many important cities and becoming like an emperor. If you want, I can break down any part even more or explain related topics like who Harsha was or what made Bengal so rich. Just ask. Here's a deep, detailed summary of the very simple language. Deep, detailed summary. After a king named Jayanaga lost power, another king called Sashanka became more powerful in the Bengal region called Gauda. Sashanka expanded his kingdom and joined forces with a king from Malava, a central Indian kingdom. Together, they defeated the Makaris, an important ruling family in northern India. Sashanka's known reign is between 606 AD and 619 AD. Historical records say he killed a king named Rajavardhana just before Emperor Harsha took the throne in 606 AD. By that time, Sashanka had already built a large empire stretching from Bengal, Gauda, all the way to Kanauj, a major city in northern India. However, Sashanka did not become powerful overnight. He started as called a Mahasamanta and grabbed an influence. During this time, he was a younger contemporary of another king, Mahasenagupta. Mahasenagupta's son, Madhava Gupta, lived around the same time as Emperor Harsha. Because the Makaris blocked the later Guptas, another royal family, from becoming very powerful, the later Guptas tried to be friendly with the Gaudas, people ruled by Sashanka, to counterbalance their enemies. It is likely that Mahasenagupta accepted Sashanka's authority to some extent, meaning Sashanka was the senior king. Records show that when Harsha became king, Sashanka and Devagupta, king of Malava, invaded Kanauj together. Devagupta was either an ally or subordinate of Sashanka. The exact relationship between Devagupta and Mahasenagupta is unclear, but political connections among these kings were complex. Old copper plate inscriptions, called the Dubi plates, reveal that when Vaskaravarman, future king of Kamarupa in Assam, was still a prince, a king from Gauda, probably Sashanka, invaded Kamarupa. fought a battle by the river Lohitya, Brahmaputra, and captured Bhaskaravarman and his older brother. This shows that Sashanka's rise was marked by military strength, political alliances, and territorial expansion. He started as a smaller ruler, gradually grew power and defeated rivals, formed alliances, and controlled a vast empire stretching from eastern to northern India during the early 7th century AD. Let me know if you want down even more or explained with examples. Here's a deep, detailed summary of the passage in very simple language. Deep, detailed summary. The king mentioned old records was most probably Sashanka. His name isn't directly written in one of the two important historical documents, the Dubi plates and the Afsad inscription, help us understand the politics of that time, early 7th century AD. One record says a Gauda king invaded the kingdom of Kamarupa in the Assam region, fought a battle by the Lohitya River, Brahmaputra, and captured 2 sons of the Kamarupa king named Sustitavarman. Another record says Mahasenagupta, who likely worked with Sashanka, defeated the same king Sustitavarman near the same river. From these facts, historians reasonably believe that Mahasenagupta did not fight Kamarupa alone, but was an ally of Sashanka in this conflict. This alliance is a better explanation than other ideas, such as Mahasenagupta fighting independently, or being prevented from acting because of rival kings in nearby regions. Political relationships were complex, alliances, and helped human enemies. The mention that Mahasenagupta's sons had to seek refuge with another king shows that even powerful royal families faced dangers and had to depend on allies for safety. Overall, this shows a time of shifting power where Sashanka rose to prominence in Bengal, cooperating with other rulers like Mahasenagupta to expand influence and defeat rivals like the Malkaris and kings of Kamarupa. If you want, I can explain the background of these kings and places too. Here's a deep, detailed summary of the passage in simple language. Deep, detailed summary. After Mahasenagupta, the history becomes unclear. 2 important facts are almost certain. 1. Kumaragupta and Madhavagupta, described as sons of the Malava king, had to seek safety with Prabhakaravardhana of Thanesar. Prabhakaravardhana's mother was probably Mahasenagupta's sister, showing family connections and alliances. 2. Devagupta, ruler of Malava, was an ally of the powerful god involved in the murder of another king, Grahavarman, but was later defeated by Rajavardhana, elder brother of King Harsha. Historians conclude that Devagupta, likely a relative of Mahasenagupta, took over the Malava throne by displacing Kumaragupta and Madhavagupta, possibly with help from Sashanka. Devagupta's reign ended prematurely due to defeat by Rajavardhana II. After Devagupta's fall, the later Gupta dynasty temporarily lost control of Malava. The later Guptas regained royal power later in the 7th century, but ruled over Magadha instead of Malava. This summary explains the political struggles, family ties, alliances, and power shifts in a simple, clear way, highlighting how the later Gupta family's fortunes changed during this period. Here's a deep, detailed summary of the passage in the simplest way. Deep, detailed summary. In the late 6th century, around 500s AD, the Malkaris were the most powerful rulers in northern India. They controlled a large empire stretching from Magadha in the east to eastern Punjab in the west, and down south to areas like Kalanjara and the Malava region of Rajasthan. This shows they had great military and political strength. On the other hand, the later Guptas were smaller rulers during this time. They did not rule independently, but had to accept the authority of stronger rulers. First the Aulakaras, then the powerful Malkaris, and later the king of Bengal named Sashanka. Because of this, the later Guptas were considered feudatories, local rulers who had to obey a bigger king, overlord. One important later Gupta king, Kumaris, which means he had to submit to their authority. Some historians say Kumaragupta died by religious suicide in the holy city of Prayaga, modern Allahabad. Since he died there, some assume Prayaga was part of his kingdom. But this may not be true. After losing to the Malkaris, Kumaragupta could travel safely anywhere in their empire, including Prayaga, even if he didn't rule there. This was common because kings often visited holy cities at the end of their lives for religious reasons, regardless of those cities. For example, another king, Bhavadatta Varman of South Kosaga, after defeating his enemies, even though the city was ruled by the imperial Guptas. This shows kings moved around holy places freely for religion or politics. Overall, this history tells us the later Guptas were never truly equal to the Mauryaas after being defeated. The Mauryaas were the dominant imperial power, and the later Guptas were smaller kings under their control. The story also highlights the importance of holy cities like Prayaga, where kings went for religious reasons, not necessarily because they ruled those places. Let me know if you want me to break down any part further. Here, deep and detailed summary in the simplest language, like teaching a total beginner with added clarity. Summary is later Guptas. Who was more powerful? In the second half, around 550 to 600 CE, two major dynasties were active in northern India. One, the Mauryaas. Two, the later Guptas. This period shows a clear rise of the Mauryaas to power and a decline in the importance of the later Guptas. Here's how we know this. 1. Imperial title, Maharajaja. Mauryaas, starting from King Ishanavarman, began calling themselves Maharaja, which means King of Kings, a title used only by powerful. The later Guptas only started using this title much later, during the rule of Adityasena, which was after the time of Harsha in the 7th century. What this means, the Mauryaas became emperors first. The later Guptas were not seen as emperors during the same period. 2. Coins and currency. The Mauryaas issued their own coins, which means they had strong control over their kingdom and economy. The later Guptas, so far, have not left behind any coins. We haven't found any. This likely means they were not powerful enough or not independent enough to issue coins. Why coins matter? Only kings with real power and independence create their own currency, like how each country today has its own money. 3. Respect in ancient writings. A famous writer named Bana, who wrote Harsha, a biography of Emperor Harsha, called the Maurya dynasty as holy and respected as the footprints of Lord Shiva. This is a huge praise, showing the Mauryaas were deeply respected. Other dynasties also spoke respectfully about the Mauryaas in their inscriptions and records. Even later Gupta records from before Adityasena never claimed full imperial titles. They only call kings like Sarvavarman and Avantivarman Parameshvara, Great Lord, which is not the same as emperor. 4. Political position of the later Guptas. In regions like Thanissar, ruled by Harsha's family, the later Guptas were likely subordinate rulers, meaning they were under the control of the Mauryaas at that time. This shows that the later Guptas were not independent emperors during the late 6th century. 5. Evidence and historical proof. The Mauryaas' greatness is proven by their large empire, their own coins, their inscriptions, literary praise, like in Harsha Charita, respect from other kingdoms. The later Guptas' fame, on the other hand, depends mostly on a single inscription, the Afsad inscription of Adityasena, written much later. Conclusion. During the late 500 CE, the Mauryaas were strong, independent, and recognized as emperors by others. They ruled a large empire, made coins, and were highly respected. The later Guptas were weak and not seen as true emperors at that time. They did not issue coins, weren't called emperors, and had very little real power until much later. So, the Mauryaas were clearly more powerful, more respected, and had greater imperial status than the later Guptas during this period. Would you like a comparison chart or a visual timeline to help remember this better? Here is a great, deep, and detailed summary of the full passage you gave, written in the simplest language with added explanations and context for full understanding. Deep and simple summary. The kingdom of Kamarupa and the Boma Naraka dynasty, c. 350 to 650 CE. 1. Where and what was Kamarupa? Kamarupa was an ancient kingdom located in what is now Assam in northeastern India. It lasted for several centuries and had its own line of powerful kings. Between the 4th and 7th centuries CE, it was ruled by the Bauma or Naraka dynasty, a royal family that claimed its origin from a mythical hero Naraka who was supposed to be linked to the divine beings. Hack 2. Start of historical rule, Pushya Varman. The real historical part of the dynasty begins with a king named Pushya Varman. He ruled around the same time as Samudragupta, the famous emperor of the Gupta Empire, c. 335 to 375 CE. According to historian Goyal, Pushyavarman became king of Kamarupa because Samudragupta appointed him as a feudatory, a smaller king under the control of the emperor. The Guptas gave power to trusted rulers in border areas to help protect the empire. 12 kings from the same family. Inscriptions, stone or copper plate writings tell us that there were 12 kings in this dynasty, all descended from Pushyavarman. The last king in this line was Bhaskara Varman, who was a close friend and ally of Emperor Harsha, who ruled from 606 to 647 CE. 4. Rise of power, Buddhivarman. One of the most important kings of this dynasty was Buddhivarman, who ruled around the mid-500 CE. He was Pushyavarman's 7th descendant. Buddhivarman took the grand imperial title Maharajadhiraja, which means King of Great Kings, performed the Ashvamedha Yajna, horse sacrifice, twice, a big religious and political ritual that only strong, rich kings could do. This shows that Kamarupa was no longer a small kingdom. It was now an imperial power. 5. Famous in literature, Harsha Charita. In the famous book Harsha Charita, biography of Harsha, written by Banabhata, a messenger from Bhaskara Varman comes to Harsha's court and talks about his king's ancestors. He skips many earlier kings and highlights Buddhivarman and the rulers after him, proving Buddhivarman was the turning point of power in the family. 6. Sthidavarman and Susthidavarman. Buddhivarman's grandson was Sthidavarman, and his son was Susthidavarman. Sthidavarman also performed 2 Ashvamedhas like his grandfather, showing the kingdom's continued strength. But during Susthidavarman's reign, trouble began. Number 7. Invasion by the Gauda king. The kingdom of Kamarupa was attacked by a powerful ruler from Bengal, most likely Shashanka, the king of Gauda. This attack is mentioned in the Dubi plates, royal copper plate records, of Bhaskara Varman. Susthidavarman's 2 sons, Supratishtha and Bhaskara Varman, were captured in the war. Shap 8. Connection with Mahasena Gupta. A later Gupta king named Mahasena Gupta also attacked Kamarupa. This is mentioned in the Apsad inscription. But Mahasena Gupta may have been acting as an ally or underling of Shashanka. The fighting likely happened on the banks of the Lohitya River, which is the Brahmaputra River in Assam. 9. Sons captured but later released. After the war, both sons of Susthidavarman were taken as prisoners, but were soon freed by the Gauda king, probably as a political move. 10. Bhaskara Varman becomes king. After the elder brother Supratishtha died, possibly young, Bhaskara Varman became king. He began ruling around 600 CE. He was still on the throne after Emperor Harsha's death in 647 CE, so he ruled for more than 40 years. A long and powerful reign. Why is this history important? Kamarupa, under the Bauma dynasty, started small, but became a strong kingdom by the time of Buddhivarman. It had to defend itself against big powers like Gauda and the later Guptas. Despite attacks, it survived and even flourished under Bhaskara Varman, who became a famous king in Indian history. Kamarupa's kings were not just warriors, but also religious, performing grand rituals like the Ashvamedha. The dynasty's story connects deeply with major events and rulers of ancient India, like Samudragupta, Shashanka, and Harsha. Final summary in one paragraph. From around 350 to 650 CE, Kamarupa in ancient Assam was ruled by the Bauma or Naraka dynasty. Starting with Pushyavarman, who was likely appointed by the Gupta emperor, the dynasty rose to great power by the mid-6th century. Under kings like Buddhivarman, who took grand titles and performed horse sacrifices, the kingdom became imperial in nature. It faced major challenges, especially from the Gauda king Shashanka, who even captured the future king Bhaskaravarman. But the dynasty survived and flourished, and Bhaskaravarman ruled for decades, becoming one of the greatest kings of the region and a strong ally of Harshavardhana of North India. Let me know if you want a timeline of these kings, a family tree chart, a map of ancient Kamarupa, or an even simpler version in point form. I'm happy to help. Absolutely. Here's a great, deep, and detailed summary of the passage about Orissa, modern-day Odisha, during the late Gupta period and early post-Gupta period, written in very simple, clear English for full understanding. Detailed summary of the passage on Orissa, Odisha. 1. Very little is known about Odisha during the Gupta Empire. Historians don't have many records or inscriptions from Odisha, ancient Orissa, during the time of the Gupta Empire, roughly 320 to 550 CE. So we can't say much about what was happening there during those years. This could be because written records were lost, destroyed, or never made. 2. Most of Odisha was likely part of the Gupta Empire. Although information is limited, it is very likely that the Guptas controlled most of Odisha during their rule. The Guptas may have directly ruled Odisha, meaning they sent their own governors or officers to manage the area instead of using local kings. This shows Odisha was an important part of their empire. 3. One local chief, Prithvivigraha, ruled Kalinga under the Guptas, around 569 to 570 CE. A stone inscription, writing carved on stone, from the year 569 to 70 CE, found in a place called Sumandala, tells us that a man named Prithvivigraha was ruling Kalinga, which is southern Odisha. But he was not an independent king. He ruled the area under Gupta control, meaning he followed the orders of the Gupta emperor. 4. By the late 500 CE, new local dynasties began to appear. Around 575 to 600 CE, the Guptas were losing power. At this time, two local dynasties, royal families, started to rule different parts of Odisha. The Mana dynasty in the north, the Sailabhava dynasty in the south. These local rulers took over the area as the central Gupta rule weakened. However, we don't have enough records about these two dynasties, so historians can't tell their full story, like exactly when they started or how powerful they were. Number 5. By early 600 CE, these local rulers came under the control of Shashanka, king of Bengal. In the early decades of the 7th century CE, around 600 to 630 CE, both the Mana and Sailabhava kings had to accept the authority of a more powerful king. This king was Shashanka, the ruler of Gauda, which is in present-day Bengal. Shashanka's Ganjam inscription from 619 CE clearly proves that he had control over Odisha during that time. This means that even though the Mana and Sailabhava kings ruled the land, they were not fully independent. They had to follow Shashanka's orders. Final big picture. Odisha was part of the Gupta Empire, likely ruled directly by Gupta officials. After the Guptas weakened, local kings, Mana and Sailabhava, took control of Odisha. But even these local kings were not fully free, because Shashanka of Bengal became powerful and made them his subordinates. We know this from a real stone inscription dated 619 CE found in Odisha, Ganjam district, which proves Shashanka's rule there. Historical importance. This passage shows how power in ancient India often shifted from big empires, like the Guptas, to smaller local rulers, like Mana and Sailabhava, and then to new rising powers, like Shashanka. It also shows how epigraphy, study of inscriptions, helps us know who ruled where and when, especially when other records are missing. Would you like me to turn this into a timeline of events, a map of these regions, a profile of Shashanka or the Sailabhava dynasty? I'm here to explain anything further. Here is a great, deep, detailed summary of the passage you shared, written in very simple and clear, with extra background and explanation to help you think like a beginner. Summary. The rise of small kingdoms in early medieval Rajasthan, c. 550 to 850 CE. After the Great Gupta Empire weakened and collapsed around 550 CE, large parts of India, including Rajasthan, broke into many small kingdoms. These were called principalities, miniature kingdoms, each ruled by a local family or dynasty. Local rulers built their own power and slowly grew independent. Among these, rose to power in Rajasthan, and this period marks the foundation of early medieval Rajput power. 1. The Pratiharas of Mandore, near modern Jodhpur. One such powerful dynasty in Rajasthan was the Pratihara family, who ruled from Mandore, a city near modern Jodhpur. According to their own family legends, they came from a Brahmana, priestly ancestor named Harichandra. This is important because in early India, Brahmana origin gave high social status, even though these kings later became warriors. Harichandra had several sons. One of them, Rajila, and his descendants continued ruling in Mandore. Another son, Dada, is believed to have started an independent kingdom in southern Gujarat, in a place called Lata or Lala. However, historians do not believe the Gujarat rulers were directly related to the Mandore Pratiharas. Both families used different names for themselves. Most of what we know about this early Pratihara family comes from stone inscriptions, especially the Jodhpur inscription of a ruler named Bauka, 837 CE, and 5 inscriptions from Angetiala, created by his brother Kakuka, 861 CE. Based on the dates, Harichandra is thought to have lived around 550 CE. His sons Bhogavata and Kaka are only known by name. Nothing else is recorded about them. 2. The Kingdom of Bilamala, modern Binmal. Another important kingdom in Rajasthan at this time was Bilamala, ruled by a dynasty called the Chappas. In the year 625 CE, the ruler of Bilamala was Varmalata. His minister Suprabhadeva was the grandfather of great Sanskrit poet Magha, who wrote the poem Shishupalavada. A Chinese traveler and monk named Xuanzang, Yuanchuang, who visited India around 630 CE, mentioned this kingdom, calling it Kuchelo or Gurjarat. Historians think he used that name because the Chappas may have been connected to the Gurjara people, a powerful ethnic group in western India. 3. Other important dynasties of Rajasthan, c. 7th, 8th century CE. Besides the Pratiharas and Chappas, 2 more minor dynasties ruled parts of Rajasthan, Chama of Sapadalaksha around Ajmer and Sambar, Guhilas of Kishkinda, and later Mewar around Udaipur. Both of these dynasties claimed to be descended from Brahmanas, but over time they became known as Rajputs, a warrior group that gained power in medieval India. Why this period is important? This period, 550 to 850 CE, saw the rise of regional powers after the fall of a great empire, Guptas, which is a common pattern in Indian history. Dynasties like the Pratiharas, Chappas, Chahamanas, and Guhilas created the political foundations for the Rajput kingdoms that would dominate Rajasthan later. These families started small, often from priestly or local backgrounds, but over time became warrior kings. Historical knowledge about them mostly comes from stone inscriptions, like ancient official notices carved on rocks and temples, and from foreign travelers, like Xuanzang. Key terms to remember. Term, meaning. Principality, a small independent kingdom. Pratiharas, a powerful dynasty in western India, starting in Mandore. Chappas, rulers of Bilamala, modern Binmal. Harichandra, ancestor of the Pratiharas. Dada possibly started a separate kingdom in Gujarat. Bauka and Kakuka, later Pratihara rulers who left inscriptions. Xuanzang Yuanchuang, Chinese monk who visited India around 630 CE. Rajput, a warrior group or caste that rose in medieval India. Brahmana origin. Many dynasties claimed priestly roots for status. Would you like a timeline, map, or a dynasty family tree to help visualize this better? I can also make a quick quiz or flashcards if you want to revise. Here is a deep, clear, and very simple summary of Vallabhi, based on the detailed explanation above. I've written it as if teaching a total beginner, with all the important points made easy to understand. Deep, detailed, simple summary. The Maitrakas of Vallabhi, Gujarat. 1. Who were the Maitrakas? The Maitrakas were a royal family or dynasty who ruled the region of Gujarat in western India during the late 500s and early 600s CE. Their capital city was called Vallabhi. The Maitrakas were not. The first two leaders in the family were only military commanders, senapatis. They served under other powerful kings. But later, the third ruler, Dronasima, was given the title Maharaja, Great King, by a bigger king, most likely Prakashadharman of the Olakara dynasty, around the year 516 CE. So, the Maitrakas rose to power slowly, starting small during the time when the great Gupta Empire was falling. 2. Did the Maitrakas try to become emperors of all India? No, they did not try to rule all of North India. They mostly focused on ruling their own region. But even though they weren't aggressive or very ambitious like some other dynasties, their kingdom became very important for other reasons. 3. Why was their kingdom so important? Their location and their wealth made their land very valuable. Gujarat is near the Arabian Sea, so it had ports for sea trade. It had rich cities and highways, especially the nearby region of Malwa, with the famous city of Ujjain. Ujjain was a major center of learning, religion, and culture. Gujarat's ports were very useful for trading with other countries by sea. Because of all this, Gujarat became a target for bigger kings. Many rulers wanted to either capture Gujarat or stay friendly with the Maitrakas so they could use the ports. Nar 4. Who attacked or wanted control over Gujarat? Even though the Maitrakas weren't trying to expand, many neighboring kingdoms attacked or pressured them. Alakaras, Central India. Kalachuris, Central India. Vakatakas, Deccan region. Pushyabudis, North India, under the famous king Harsha. Chaluts, powerful southern kings under Pulakeshin II. These kingdoms often fought over Malwa and Gujarat because of their economic and trade value, and because controlling these areas helped them grow bigger. 5. Why did big kings like Harsha and Pulakeshin fight near Maitraka territory? Both Harsha from North India and Pulakeshin from the south wanted to become the Chakravarti, the supreme ruler of all India. To do that, they needed to expand their empires, and the middle zone, Malwa, Gujarat, was very important. Whoever controlled Gujarat had better access to foreign trade and sea routes, which made their empire stronger. Even though the Maitrakas themselves were not aggressive, they got caught in the middle of big power struggles. Nazir 6. What does this tell us about Indian history in this time? This was a time when small dynasties like the Maitrakas could rise to power when big empires like the Guptas fell. Geography and trade were very important. Kings wanted money and seaports, not just land. Power was always shifting. Regions like Malwa and Gujarat were often fought over. Many kings began as local leaders or military men and became kings later. This was common in early medieval India. Final summary in one line. The Maitrakas were a powerful but peaceful dynasty in Gujarat who rose during the fall of the Guptas and became important because of their rich location, even though they got caught in the crossfire between bigger empires like Harshas and Pulakeshins. Let me know if you want a simple timeline, a map, or a breakdown of each king in the Maitraka dynasty.